Welcome back, football fanatics, to the First and 10 Club with me, your host, Mark D. We're here to recap Week 14, talk about Week 15, and basically just keep you in that happy fantasy mood leading up to Christmas. We're a week away. Super excited about it. Um, so, Week 15, like I said, is right around the corner, and we have a lot to digest. Hopefully, you are still alive in your fantasy playoffs, or maybe you're here just to get your fix before you set your DFS lineups, or maybe you just want to find out what's going on in the NFL as your teams make a run at clinching spots. We're playing spoiler, but let's recap Week 14. So, 4-0 on my show picks last week. And another super strong week overall, 12-4 for the whole week. We're definitely in the right neighborhood for our bold predictions. Henry had a monster game. They let Russ cook, but unfortunately, they let his backup make dessert. So we definitely got big games out of them, but it didn't hit the exact marks that we were talking about in bold predictions. But I'm happy with them nevertheless. And Pittsburgh's shine is officially worn off. Buffalo makes it 2 in a row that the Steelers drop. And Buffalo sends a message to the league that they are for real. They are here to contend. So let's talk about that. Let's start with that game right there. The Bills in that game were dominant. Uh, and I don't know how much of it is the Bills, who are a very, very good football team, and how much of it is a Steelers team that's starting to get beat up, especially on defense with injuries, and with a wide receiver crew that absolutely, apparently, um, is playing with Crisco maybe before the game, maybe eating some hot butter popcorn. Um, Juju, worry less about dancing and more about catching the ball. Deontay Johnson. Oh, let's talk Deontay Johnson. Uh, he has been a darling for fantasy production until last week. And, Tomlin kind of hinted at this a little bit, and he got benched. And whether you realize it or not, he got benched. He got pulled, I think, early second quarter. He was focal point. They threw the ball to him, and he just could not hang on to it. And Tomlin pulled him out. Washington moved into that 3 role, and you didn't see him until the fourth quarter. Thank God for that, where he kind of got some garbage time points, and it was only because of the game script. They went to 4 wide receivers. So, little nervous playing Deontay Johnson this week. I'll be honest. I don't know what his role is going to be. Um, it's a really bad time of year to have those wonders. If he's one of the guys that got you here, unfortunately you have to roll with him, and he is capable of just going off. And I think the Steelers have a good week this week to kind of maybe get the ship righted. But uh, if he still remains in that number 4 role, it's going to be very limited his chances. So um, that kind of sucks, but you might want to be looking at some different options if you have them. um, the Bills just dominant. Wow. And the scary thing is, this is being done without John Brown, and I don't think enough is being said in regards to what John Brown means to Josh Allen. It really takes the top off of the offense. John Brown's just explosive speed down the field, and he's been out now for weeks. It's scary to think of how much more effective the passing game could potentially be once he gets back, and hopefully that's sooner than later. Talking about Jonathan, yeah, so um, one of my other bold predictions last week, not in the bold predictions, but when we talked about players I liked, Jonathan Taylor, I said, look, the rookies are coming. I talked about this multiple times about how maddening the use of Jonathan Taylor was by Frank Reich. But it was never that he was having horrible production. And I said, hang in there, hang in there. He has a gravy playoff schedule. And you're going to get to see week 2 of that this week when they face the Texans. But Jonathan Taylor produced last week. He got the touches, got tons of touches, and it paid dividends. 2 touchdowns or 100 yards. Jonathan Taylor, that's what I expect out of him. And early kind of forecasting, that's what I expect to see every week in and out. next year. Don't lose faith on this kid yet. And then let's go to my team, the football team. Ugh, hate that. I still hate that. Please, I implore you, Washington front office, Washington brass, get rid of the football team. Every time I see WFT, I still just automatically think WTF. I don't know what you're thinking. It's not a good thing. Get rid of it. Come up with a nickname for us. Off my soapbox. Anyway, Washington football team. They won again. They knocked off the 49ers. They are now sitting alone in first place in the NFC East. And they did it without scoring an offensive touchdown. Now, there's two schools of thought here. One, very, very scary moment. Alex Smith got pulled from the game because of a right calf injury. Now, that's the same leg that he had the horrific injury not last year, 2 years ago, and he's coming back from. They said it was tightness, and they couldn't get it loose, and it was totally precautionary. But the offense just didn't seem the same when he wasn't when he was out of there. Haskins didn't do anything bad, but it didn't look good either. So with that being said, the offense just absolutely kind of crumbled. But I said they won without scoring an offensive TD, and it wasn't actually a low-scoring game. 2, not 1, but 2 defensive touchdowns. The Washington football team's defense has found its groove. I kind of talked about this at the beginning of the season, my previous season, that, with that front five, really, 5 former number 1 picks, that, once this started going, once it got the momentum, it was going to be tough. And I can't imagine that there is any team in the league right now that wants to face that front 5. And I think really if Washington does anything, if they go on to win the division, if they have a shot at, winning a playoff game, whatever it might be, it's going to be because of that defense. So let's go the opposite way here. We talked about a defense that's just absolutely mind-blowing right now. Let's talk about offense. Let's talk about an offense that just, okay, it's normal. The Kansas City Chiefs offense is a juggernaut. It's rare that a team can slow them down. But what maybe not enough people are talking about is Kelce. Not only is this guy the best tight end in the league, it's hands down this year. He is the best tight end in the NFL. But it's hard to not look at him as at least the offensive player of the year. Right now, he leads the league, even including wide receivers, in yardage. If he finishes that way, as a tight end, I mean, what he's putting together is just a absolute phenomenal season. And he's on pace, I believe, to not only break, but break very easily Kittle's record from last year for most yards in a season. And I said at least. Depending what he does here, depending how he finishes out, and I understand there's only 3 more games left. But depending what goes on there and how he plays in those games, I know it's so rare that a quarterback doesn't win MVP. But you almost have to make a case for him. You almost have to at least put him in the conversation. Because I don't know. I don't know who is more important on that team. It's interesting. I know the easy answer here is Patty Mahomes. But Kelce is just a game-changing tight end. And it's painfully obvious when we get to players I like and don't like. It's painfully obvious as to why Kelce is just above everybody else. So talking about offense, and let's go to a game that I expected there to be a ton of offense, and there just wasn't. And that was the Bucs-Vikings game. And wow, what a letdown. For starters, I was surprised Cook. I was not high on Cook. You guys knew that. But he was able to function. He was able to put together a pretty good week against, that vaunted Buccaneers run defense. But where I was expecting to see the fireworks was really in the passing game, and it really didn't happen. Cousins wasn't great. Brady put together a respectable week, but it wasn't anything special. And it really does look like something is wrong with TB12, with Tom Brady. The deep ball is not there. He's missing wide open throws. It's surprising to me to see that, but It's starting to wonder if something's bothering him. Maybe there is some age to it. I don't know. Or the offensive play is just not scripting the way he wants. I think he bounces back this week, and there'll be more on that to come. But uh, just really disappointing to see what happened there between the Bucks and the Vikings. Rams on a roll. Uh, they really look quite dominant right now, and I honestly don't know if Seattle's going to be able to catch them and jump back in front for first place. Seattle might be making a run, and I still think they can make a run, but they might be doing it from the wild card spot. Because the Rams right now, the defense is anytime you have Aaron Donald and Ramsey, just two blue chip thoroughbreds like that, it makes the defense elite without saying, and the offense finds a way. Cam Akers finally clicking. These rookies, again, we talk about sometimes when you draft, and you give up on players too soon. Now it looks like Cam Akers is just getting the lion's share of the work. They made short work of the Patriots on Thursday Night Football. Cam Akers just ran roughshod over them. So, and I expect more to come from him yet. Uh, Couple of others games that I want to talk about. One, let's talk about Philly. Philly shocking New Orleans, and as much as I talk crap on Philadelphia, I can't even do that to this one. Jalen Hurts came out. I don't know from where. I have not seen that Jalen Hurts yet. So either Peterson was hiding him, or something clicked with a week's worth of preparation as the number one guy. But they came out and I think they stunned the Saints. And I think it was a combination of two things. I think the Eagles came out and played very, very well, very good fundamental football. And I think the Saints might have just kind of overlooked this game a little bit. Um, they had Kansas City coming up this week, and I think their focus might have been on that. So, and that happens. It absolutely happens in the NFL. Um, they really didn't get much of a pass rush with that horrible offensive line, and maybe it helps because Hurts is a much much more mobile quarterback. Um, but uh, all this other storylines. You had Hurts have a great game. You had uh, you know a little bit of a passing game. You had 200-yard rushers. Miles Sanders went over 100 yards instead of Hurts. Um, So, as much as Philly did that, I just don't think New Orleans really came to play. And what came out of this game is I find it hard to believe that Wentz stays in Philadelphia at this point. I think they've created a mess. You have now potentially a backup quarterback that's going to cost you $30 million. Um, I'm not really sure what the objective was there. Can they trade him? Maybe. That's a very expensive gamble to trade. Can't cut him. So when we get to run out the clock, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. But excuse me. And then the last one I want to talk about, I'll talk about Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football, and this was not the game I expected at all. I thought it was going to be a good game, but I was expecting more of a defensive run the ball, a little more methodical type game. Never, never would have pictured 90, almost 90 points scored. Just a hair or two underneath that. There was points everywhere. It was a barn burner. And Cleveland, oh, I know fans, you guys have to be heartbroken. Have to be heartbroken, but you shouldn't be. I know you lost that game, and it was back and forth. But you know what? I think if you play that game 100 times, you come out of it 50 and 50. Those teams just went. It was a heavyweight fight. For fans, that was phenomenal to watch. And I don't like the Browns. I don't like the Ravens. That was just great football to watch. Um, Sub story with whether or not Lamar Jackson was getting an IV for cramps or getting rid of another type of cramp. We'll just call it that. I don't know. I have no clue. It makes for a very weird story, but hey, what else can, of course, 2020. Of course, 2020. A guy goes and drops a number two and then comes back to throw the winning touchdown. Of course. Why would you not think that would happen? But phenomenal game. Cleveland's running game, it's all over the place. Um, the Baltimore running game was great too. Their lead back Lamar Jackson. Uh, yeah, I said lead back. The guy's a running back. He's a running back that can throw the ball. Essentially, in my opinion, I think Baltimore just operates in the Wildcat 24/7, and maybe that's the way the NFL is going. I don't know. Um, but and the crazy thing about it is you see the production from that game, and you think, okay, Lamar moving into this week, it's Lamar, he's back. You get really excited, and then you find out that they're dealing with all kinds of COVID issues again. Uh, I, I don't know what to say. 2020 in the NFL. I have in one of my leagues, I have Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson. And last week I went back and forth and back and forth. I won, so I was lucky because Lamar Jackson far outscored Tom Brady last week. But now I'm going back and forth again because if everybody was healthy on the Ravens, I think I'd lean that way. But I do have good feelings for Tom Brady this week, so maybe we'll be okay. Um, yeah. So let's talk about Week 15. Let's get there. Let's talk about who we like, don't like. So two teams that I absolutely love this week. I love Pittsburgh. They're playing the Bengals. The backup quarterback. Pittsburgh gets it. I think Pittsburgh gets things fixed this week, and we'll talk about more with that through our player picks. But love Pittsburgh this week for defense. I love the Rams for defense, and I like Miami this week. New England just does not look like they can really do anything. I know they scored 45 points not that long ago against the Chargers, but A, one, it was against the Chargers. B, a very large chunk of those points came from special teams and defense. The offense is atrocious. And Miami's got a damn good defense. Mark my words here. I think Xavier Howard keeps the streak going. I think he gets another pick in this game. I got a lot of hand movements here. I'm excited. QBs I like this week. All right, well, okay, I've alluded to it. I like Tom Brady this week. I think Tom Brady bounces back against the Falcons. Um, Part of that is Rojo is dealing with a broken pinky. Uh, the running back situation there, I think, is going to be a little bit of a mess. I think Tom Brady throws and shows that he can still kind of do it. Because I think this game actually ends up being a little bit closer than expected. I think I think Atlanta is capable enough to maybe put a touchdown or two on the board, but I think this just my gut feeling. And again, that's what we're talking about here is players I like and dislike. My gut feeling is this is a week that Tom Brady kind of sends a message, especially after last week where, you hear the rumblings. I think he comes out and kind of proves to people that he's still got it, especially heading into the playoffs. They need that statement win heading into the playoffs because right now they're kind of a fringe wild card. Big Ben. I think Big Ben gets it right this week. The Steelers do not run the football. Stop thinking they do. They don't. Stop picking up Benny Snell. Stop picking up McFarland. Just stop. Steelers do not run the football. If one of those guys don't steal a touchdown for you, you're going to be screwed in daily fantasy or in season long. They're not really throwing to the backs. They're not running the ball. It's Ben Roethlisberger and his four wide receivers and tight end. That's the Steelers' offense. I know they play Cincinnati this week. I know it would seem like this is a great opportunity for them to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Big Ben's going to throw the ball 40 times minimum. I expect a big week out of him. What wide receiver? That's the tough one. Because it could be all four of them. It could be spread across the board. It could be all five. And then again, if you don't get the touchdown, well, then you're screwed. But Big Ben, I like Big Ben this week. Running backs, I like this week. Well, the crappy thing is, I don't have them in any of my leagues. But Henry is just slated to have another monster week. I don't know if he does as good as last week, but I do see at least 2 touchdowns in his future this week. 100 yards. That's a damn good week. Um, love Jonathan Taylor this week. Like I said, I think he's going to be a fantasy winner this year. Jonathan Taylor is going to win leagues for people in fantasy this year. And then a name that we just don't really talk about. He's one of those players that kind of pop up, don't pop up. Jeff Wilson. Pay attention to Raheem Mostert. One, I like him to score this week no matter what. Going against Dallas, and Dallas's defense allows points to get scored. San Francisco can run the ball. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. If Mostert does not play this week, I think Wilson is a must start. I think Wilson is a top 10 running back this week if Mostert doesn't play. But even if Mostert does suit up, I still like Jeff Wilson to get in the end zone. So maybe a sneaky, if Mostert's playing, maybe a sneaky flex and cheap. If Mostert doesn't go, he is, I think, in a smash spot. And like I said, I think he becomes a top 10 running back this week. Wide receivers I like this week. Look, there's a ton. There's a ton of wide receivers that could just have great weeks. The scary part about it is they're in situations, or I think they're in situations where you don't really know who's going to get the target share or who's going to get the activity. 2 wide receivers I really, really like this week. One, Terry McLaurin. He's been quiet for 2 weeks for Washington. They're going up against Seattle, who, let's face it, Seattle's defense is not that good. You can throw the ball against them. Even if Alex Smith doesn't play this week, Haskins has enough of a rapport with Terry McLaurin. I believe that Terry McLaurin has a big week. I think you see one of those bounce back weeks from him this week. And I love me some Bobby Trees this week. Robert Woods, I think that is the wide receiver you want to own in that passing game against the hapless New York Jets. I think Bobby Trees has a big week. I could see 2 touchdowns for him also. Now, let's get to tight ends because this is the tricky part. Tight ends I like this week. Pay attention to this. Okay. I'm going to give you 4 names. 4 names that I like this week. And then remember that for when we get to players I don't like. I like Kelsey. I like Robert Tonyan. I like TJ Hawkinson. I like Irv Smith of the Minnesota Vikings. Got it? Those 4. 4. There, that's easier. Those 4. Okay. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Noah Fant, but we're going to get to why I have a hard time giving the nod to him. Some of you may already know. Just remember that. Okay, let's get the players I don't like or teams I don't like. Defenses I don't like this week. I don't like Carolina. I just don't. Carolina is going to give up points this week. I know Jeremy Chin is possibly the defensive rookie of the year. I know he's in a knockout, drag-out fight with Chase Young for that honor. I just don't like Carolina this week. I don't like Philly this week. Look, Philly had a great game. I still think there's going to be some growing pains. There's film on Jalen Hurts now. I just don't love Philly. And then here's maybe the tricky one. I'm not really in love with Buffalo this week. I think Buffalo's going to win, but I don't think their defense is going to be the type of defense you need in either daily or in season long. So be careful with that. Quarterbacks I don't like this week. I don't like Alex Smith. It's a trap game. And what do I mean by that? So everyone knows you can throw in Seattle. So it makes perfect sense, in my opinion, to throw Alex Smith in there, especially in a daily lineup. But the thing is, unless he throws the ball deep, whatnot, when they get in the red zone, Washington is running the ball. I can see him having a good day throwing. He might get 1 touchdown. It's a bad situation. And I know it looks just so tasty against the Seahawks, but shying away from Alex Smith this week, I just don't see him going off. And the same thing, it's the same thought process with this one, which is Matt Ryan. I do think Matt Ryan will put up some stats, but I don't see him going off this week. Okay. Talking about that same game, Atlanta Tampa Bay game, Leonard Fournette, run, run. I know Rojo has a broken pinky and might not even play. I just don't trust it. I don't trust that tier. The guy was inactive last week. That means they trusted Shady McCoy, the ancient one, over him. If you're playing this week, maybe in daily fantasy you throw him in there, you take a flyer. But if you're playing in your season-long leagues right now, you're in the playoffs. Don't take that risk. I also don't like Todd Gurley this week. Tampa Bay got run on last week. I think they are going to come out and reassert themselves as a top run defense, and Todd Gurley is going to pay the price for that. Wide receivers I don't like this week, Marvin Jones. Just don't. I also don't like Landry this week. I think you're going to see the ball thrown elsewhere. So I don't see big performances out of either of those two guys. And now we get to tight end. So let's talk about tight end. This is the maddening part. Hopefully, if you are still in the fantasy playoffs, you have one of those four guys that I talked about. Remember, they were Kelsey, Tanyan, Hawkinson, and Irv Smith. Because those are really the only four tight ends I like this week. I am out on the lot. The rest of them I am out on. I just don't see the big production this week. I don't see them coming through. You are going to be lucky to get 10 points from those other tight ends. And that includes Darren Waller. And maybe it's a jinx, because the last time I was out on Darren Waller, he went off. But I'm not feeling that great vibe. Talking in terms of DFS here, for the cost of Darren Waller, I don't think he's going to have the return. The rest that are there, maybe you can. Maybe you get lucky. That's what it is. But I think that's what it's going to be. I don't see a dominant matchup there, so just out for there. That's just some of my thoughts, in terms of players I like, don't like, that's sort of stuff. So my bold predictions for the week. All right, so let's get crazy here. Jonathan Taylor, first bold prediction. Jonathan Taylor outperforms what he did last week. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. And he had a hell of a game last week. He's playing Houston, the worst run defense in the league. Houston cannot stop anyone. So, absolutely love that matchup. Love that matchup. I think he has a phenomenal week. Talking about players that have phenomenal weeks. Tom Brady. I hinted at it. Tom Brady throws for 5 touchdowns this week. Tom Brady throws for 5 touchdowns against the Atlanta Falcons. There's just too much being said that he can't hit the deep ball, that he can't get to his wide receivers, whatnot. Not only do I think Antonio Brown gets one this week, but I think you see Godwin get one this week. I think Gronk gets one this week. I think it's a touchdown for you, a touchdown for you. You get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. Tom Brady goes off this week. I think he throws for 5 touchdowns. And that's not just because I have to play him in playoffs or because I might play him in playoffs. I really do think he has a big week. And then this is kind of the interesting one. Saints. I think the Saints keep Mahomes out of the top 12 quarterbacks this week in fantasy. I know everyone's expecting it to be this just crazy barn burner game, but Sean Payton is smart enough to understand that he is not going to win that game. I don't know that you see Drew Brees back this week, but I do think that defense is going to be ready to go, and I think they are going to slow the game down. I think they are going to run the ball. This would be a sneaky week to play Latavius Murray because I think he's going to run the ball a lot. I can see not only Latavius Murray, but I can also see Alvin Kamara both touching the ball 15 times. I can see him running the ball 30 times. Slow, methodical beat down. If they can get up and they can control the flow of the game, I think that's how they potentially beat the Kansas City Chiefs. If it's a shootout, especially with Taysom Hill, I just can't see the Chiefs keeping up. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Mahomes gets limited this week. My game picks for the week. All right. My lock, the Rams over the Jets. It just doesn't get any easier than that. It's the Rams over the Jets. I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts over the Houston Texans. I don't even think Watson has anyone to throw to anymore. He can't do it all himself. Indy's defense is just too damn tough. Love the Colts over Houston. 49ers over Dallas. And I think it's interesting because I think the momentum here is going to Dallas. I think the 49ers bounce back this week. They still have just a great defense. And I really do think that they kind of control and limit what Dallas does. I think the 49ers squeak one out there. And then for the Thursday night game, tonight's game, I'm taking the Raiders. Let's face it, you never know what you're going to get with the Raiders. You really don't. And that's the crazy thing about this team. There's time the Raiders just look horrible, but this is a team that controlled and handed a loss, not just one, but handed a loss to the Chiefs. And it's tough. I mean, it could go either way. They could not show up. The Chargers aren't anything, special. They put up great numbers one week and then they can't do anything the following week. I'm giving it to the Raiders. Maybe it's just on home field advantage, but we picked the Thursday night game and I'm taking the Las Vegas Raiders. So with that being said, it's time for our witching hour, if you want to call it that. That's what Red Zone uses. Whatever. We're at the end of our show. It's time to run out the clock. And I kind of alluded to one of these players earlier. Nothing is worse. Like us as fans, and maybe it means nothing to these players, but we get so into the NFL season because we are playing fantasy. We feel invested in it. This is why we cheer people on. Noah Fant. Ouch. That's all I can say is ouch. You had no inkling, you had no anything that you were potentially so sick that you couldn't play in the game, that you did all your fantasy owners dirty by showing up ready to go and then saying, nope, too sick. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it hit just like that. That sucks. Sucks for fantasy owners. We can be bitter about that. But that happens. And if this puts me in YouTube jail again, then so be it. The bullshit that Josh Jacobs pulled prior to the start of the games, where the Raiders said that he was playing, and this prima donna piece of crap thinks, oh, I'm going to be funny. I'm going to post on my social media account, I'm not playing, to create a fury of people rushing to figure things out, because this shit matters to us. People put money into this. And although we don't ask you to play the game based on the fact that we're playing fantasy, we understand when it's the end of the game and it might serve you better to slide and run the clock out than score that third touchdown. I get that. It sucks. It's a bitter pill to swallow. But you being a petulant turd, because I can't use the words that I want to use, and deliberately trolling your fans and people who play this game, no forgiving. None. I'm benching him. Now, it's not a championship game. I'm in a consolation bracket in one of my leagues. I refuse to play the guy. If I was a Raiders fan and I had a jersey and I played fan, it would be gone. That's when I'd be lighting jerseys on fire. There's no excuse. That's disgusting. That you intentionally thought it'd be funny to go mess with all these people. And maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. But when people who spend an entire season trying to get where they're at right now into fantasy playoffs, because the hardware, the camaraderie, why we play fantasy football, the people that either started you praying to God it was wrong or scrambling to pull you out and put someone else in, Luckily, you sucked in the game and really didn't put a whole lot of points up. Because I tell you what, I think the fire that would be coming from the fantasy community if you would have said that crap and people would have pulled you out of their lineups and then you went off, it's a flag, it's a penalty, it's bullshit. The happier thoughts. Carson Wentz. Good old buddy Carson Wentz. So, um, I'm sorry. That's all I can say. Like I said, the organization's done you dirty. You've been set up to fail. Um, and I know, look, part of it is you just have to perform, and that hasn't always happened. But God, there's a statue outside of Nick Foles. Now they bring in this guy, Jalen Hurts, second round quarterback, and now they've turned it over to him, and now I don't know where you go. But where do you go? What is your future? Well, I'll tell you right now who I think would be the perfect landing spot. I think it'd be a great thing for you, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. They're looking for their quarterback in the future. I think it's a perfect match. I don't know if the deal can get done, but absolutely love that. I think that's a good fit. I think potentially New England is a very good fit. Um, Depending how this season plays out, everyone says, "Oh, the quarterback situations are great." What if Big Ben hangs it up after this year? What if New Orleans and Drew Brees he hangs it up after this year? I think there's some homes there, but I'm going to go on the record here. I think somehow, some way, if Wentz is not an Eagle next year, I think somehow he finds his way to Indy. I just see that marriage happening, him going back to Frank Reich, and I think that would be the salvation for his his career. So I kind of hope that happens. I don't have a problem with Carson Wentz. I don't like him because he's on the Eagles, but I don't have a problem with him. Final kneel down. It's playoffs. Playoffs. And I don't just mean fantasy playoffs. Obviously, if you're here, you're in fantasy playoffs. No, I'm actually talking like playoffs with the NFL. And the crazy thing about this year is if you would have gone back, say, 6 weeks ago, the playoff picture would have been so dramatically different. And the reason I say that is, 6 weeks ago, well, we pretty sure that, the Ravens would have been in contention. We still didn't know if the Cleveland Browns were for real. The NFC East was a joke. So the Seahawks looked like the juggernaut that nobody was going to beat. Well, a lot of things have changed. So you have the Rams in the commanding spot in the West. Um, you still have the Saints there, and you still have the Packers there. But a team that at one point in time in Tampa Bay that looked almost unstoppable now seems to have some kinks in the armor. As crazy as it sounds, there is a possibility, it's a long shot, there is a possibility that the NFC East, who doesn't even have a single team right now with a winning record, could actually send two teams to the playoffs. They could still get a wild card in there. That's nuts. I'm not saying they're not eliminated yet, but it definitely looks like Baltimore has a hell of an uphill battle to get into the playoffs. That was a lot of people's pick to be the Super Bowl team this year from the AFC. They might not even make the playoffs. Miami seems to have turned the corner and is doing great, where, the Patriots, a steadfast playoff team for decades, they're out. So my point on this is what's great about the NFL. One, the parity, the teams that change from year to year that make it and don't make it. And two, you don't give up. You don't ever give up because there's still a chance. You can still fight for it. I know earlier in the year I was frustrated with Washington, but the defense is coming around. I think Washington's a lot closer to being a more difficult team to face than people realize. Once that offense catches up to this defense, teams are going to be in trouble, and that's great. I'm enjoying that. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to wrap things up with that. If you love the show and you haven't done so yet, please click the subscribe button down below. Follow us so you don't miss shows. Comment if you need advice for start sit. Please message us on the video or reach out to us on social media. but help spread the word. It'll help grow our audience. I appreciate that. We're a week away from the holidays, so hope everyone's having a great holiday season. We'll have our special Christmas show next week. Don't miss that. And with that being said, I'm your host, Mark D. I hope you enjoyed watching the First and 10 Club. Let's go football.